I wanted to talk about getting older as a musician, specifically as a indie pop kind of musician. And it's a topic that I think everybody deals with. If you make music for long enough, you will have to deal with change. You will have to deal with getting older. And I have come to realize personally that this is something really to embrace, is getting older. Something really to accept and not avoid. And I know that adds depth to art. It adds depth to perspective. Aging is something that is inevitable and not worth fighting. It really isn't. The reason I feel it's an important topic is that in general, our society is very youth obsessed. I mean, it just is. It just is. And then specifically with music and art. Could you cut it out? My dog loves to dig. And sometimes I love her for it. I love you for that, little girl. Yeah, good girl. What was I saying though? In general, our society is very youth obsessed, but I think especially with art and with music and certain genres of music. I don't know if this is true in the classical music world, the 50, 60-year-old cellist. I don't think age is a barrier to, I don't know, their playing. And I honestly don't think age is ultimately a barrier in any genre, but if we're being honest, like, it's usually musicians in their early 20s or, maybe mid 20s, maybe late 20s. But there's a certain point in the aging process where either consciously or subconsciously, people start to think, well, they're getting old, a little too old for this or something. I think this might especially be true in the punk genre. I mean, the ethos of punk is very youthful. That's what we love about it. It's extremely idealistic, I think. Other thing about getting older is you need to have your electrolytes. This video is brought to you by blah, blah, blah. I'm fucking with you. No, this is not a sponsored video. This is just for entertainment purposes, but also truly, electrolytes I feel are necessary, especially as I get older. Where am I going with all this? Where I'm going with all this is, like with so many things in life, the mindset about it is really important. And here's what I mean. If you really do feel that age is just a number and that it doesn't mean that you have to stop making art or change your genre or change everything about what you're doing because now I'm too old or something. If your mindset is good around getting older, then as you age, it's not going to prevent you from creating your work, because you know that your work isn't tied to being a certain age. Your work is coming from something deeper about yourself and your experience. But if your mindset is a little bit unexamined or a little bit restrictive, it's very easy, and I think this happens to a lot of artists, and it's maybe an uncomfortable topic, like people don't really want to talk about it, but there's this feeling of like, my youth is gone, my best years are over, the kids are so creative, I'm a rusty old man, I should just stop, This is especially true in music because the people who tend to set up shows, like in a certain genre, in the genre I'm in, right? DIY, punk adjacent indie-ish, you know, people who go to shows and set up shows definitely lean towards younger. So on this recent tour I went on, we drew kind of a slightly older crowd for sure, definitely, but so many young people, and I couldn't help but feel like, wow, this is the most young people that I've hung out with in a while, and it makes you feel old. And I know you know what I mean. If you're watching this video and you go to shows and you're over 27, you're like, damn, okay, I'm the old guy now. This is happening. And I know some of you listening might be well over my age, which is 35, and you might have another perspective of like, man, you're still really young. You're only 35. But the point remains, which is as we get older, you know, well, she's digging again. I don't know if you can hear that. My other dog's starting to dig. So what I think it ultimately comes down to is, well, A, the very large topic of embracing impermanence and accepting your own mortality, which is a huge topic that I'm probably not going to get into right now. But I think maybe a little simpler way to look at it is at some point as a creative person, as an artist, there has to be a shift from how am I perceived by others and how important is that versus how am I connecting with and understanding myself, you know? Because if you can really understand and connect with yourself and have your art and your music come from that, then truly it doesn't matter how old you are. It really doesn't. You're not trapped by this perception that the young person's perspective is more valid than the old person's perspective. Because you know the source of your work is deeper than just how many years since you've been born. And like really, we've had a lot of lifetimes. We have. We've been born countless times. We've lived countless times. We've died countless times. We just have. So in that sense, age really is kind of pretty questionable. Of course, it matters. It does. It affects our perspective, and therefore it influences our work. But from another point of view, that's a silly way to look at things. And I think one of the cool things about making art is it can come from this deeper place that isn't so bound by time, that isn't so bound by practicality of, you can really kind of create from a very free place if you let yourself do that. To me, the only way to let yourself do that is to get to know yourself on some level. If my version of knowing myself is completely dependent on how I am perceived by my audience, that's an issue. That's ultimately the issue, I think. I am perceived by my audience, or I'm imagining I'm perceived by my audience as an old guy now. Actually, I think most of my audience is my age, and 35, it's an ambiguous age. You kind of feel old, you kind of don't, but I'm just using that as an example. There was a brief period in my late 20s where I had to really reckon with this, where I was like, shit, I am not getting younger. What does that mean for my art? And that whole crisis, if you will, I wouldn't say it was a crisis, but it was something I thought about quite a bit. It's based on a perception, an imagined way that others are perceiving you. Which is fine, we're always going to have that. But at some point, to continue as a creative person and as a musician, especially if the genre you're in leans younger, you really have to get to something deeper about yourself. And you have to get to know yourself deeper and understand where your creative energy is coming from. Because your creative energy is not coming from how others perceive you. When you're young, you can fool yourself with that. You can think, right, the way I'm perceived and the way I perceive myself, it's all the same, whatever. I'm not thinking about it. You're young, you're not thinking about it. You get older and you start to realize, whoa, society loves youthfulness, and I'm losing youthfulness day after day. We all are. And then you can either fight that, resist that, either get depressed about it, or try to seem younger than you are, or not let anything change or evolve because you want to still appeal to this youthful perspective. You have options, but I'm saying the best option is to actually be real with yourself and look deeper and be a deeper person. Let aging make you deeper. Then the way to do that, though, is you have to be willing to face things. And there's different ways to do that. This video I'm not going to talk about. How do you face things? But all I'm saying here is, as you get older, just keep going and don't fall into this trap of thinking that you're too old, because you're really never too old to tap into your creative energy. Creative energy is timeless. It isn't bound to this lifetime alone. And it isn't bound to your numerical age. It is deeper than that. And I think it's our job, and it's not easy. It's not actually easy. Our job as creative people, and especially as, I'll say, people who are at least attempting to live a deeper life or create from a deeper place. It's our challenge, and it's our kind of path to keep on going. So, drink your electrolytes. Take care of yourselves, and keep making cool art. And one last thing. If you are an old man like me and think you would benefit from, I don't know, support, community, connection around your process, whatever that is. If you're a songwriter, if you're trying to get some home recordings done, check out my free community. The link's below. And I hope to see you in there. And there's some resources available for you to practice, recording stuff from home. And I'm going to be adding more and more stuff to that. And then also some occasional free group Zoom call kind of things. So it's fun. It's fun. Worth checking out if you're in this mindset as well. Okay. Hope to see you over there.